Number 15. Jennifer Karen. Accidents during whale watching is a rare occurrence, but due to the size of humpback whales, incidents can cause serious damage to vessels and people. In March 2015, Jennifer Karen from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, was on vacation in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and was attending a whale watching tour. During the tour, a whale unexpectedly breached the waters and landed directly on the boat, and Karen was tossed into the water. She and 2 other passengers suffered critical injuries, and other passengers quickly performed first aid on the 2, with Karen requiring CPR. Captain quickly radioed the naval rescue team, and a boat was dispatched to retrieve those on board, and the injured were rushed to hospital for treatment. Unfortunately, Karen's injuries proved too severe, and she passed away at 35. According to the local emergency crews, this is the first incident involving a whale in the area resulting in injury, let alone fatality. An investigation was launched to determine whether or not the captain had broken restrictions by moving beyond the minimum distance all boats are required to be between vessels and whales, and it was concluded the captain had done everything possible to keep a safe distance, and there was no way he could have prevented the mishap from happening. Further details have been withheld out of respect for Karen and her family. One of the injured was released from hospital soon after, and the second was transferred back to the United States for further treatment and has since made a full recovery. Number 14. Roy Horn. Las Vegas used to be full of posters and billboards advocating the famous Siegfried and Roy show run by magicians and entertainers Siegfried Fischbacher and Roy Horn. Often stealing the spotlight from the men was their famous white tigers, who would perform tricks on stage for the bedazzled crowd. On October 3, 2003, Horn fell on stage, and one of the tigers, Manticore, grasped Horn's head in his jaws. Crew rushed in and separated Horn and Manticore, then took Horn to the hospital, where he was taken into intensive care, suffering blood loss and critical injuries to the head. According to those accompanying Horn to the hospital, he said, "Manticore is a great cat. Make sure no harm comes to Manticore." After recovering, Horn underwent rehabilitation due to partial paralysis as a result of the attack, and he went on to make a full recovery. Immediately after the incident, the Mirage Hotel and Casino closed the show, and the 267 cast and crew were laid off. Over the years, Fischbacher and Horn have refused to admit Manticore had attacked, claiming Horn had suffered a stroke on stage, and Manticore had dragged him off stage in means to help. Manticore appeared on stage again with the duo many times following the attack, with the last show on February 2009 for a charity benefit. Fischbacher and Horn retired from show business in April 2010, and Manticore passed away on March 19, 2014, following a short illness. Number 13. The Sankei-Betsu brown bear incident. Between mid-November and December 14, 1915, a large brown bear terrorized the town of Sankei-Betsu, Japan, that awoke from hibernation. Initially, the bear only stole corn and other harvested plants from residents, causing fear amongst the settlers of the local livestock and horses. The true horror began on December 9th in the home of the Otter family. Otter's wife, Abe, was at home tending to a young baby she was looking after when the bear appeared and entered the home. It proceeded to bite the baby in the head, killing him, then pounced on Abe as she attempted to defend herself, then dragged her into the woods. Witnesses described the scene as resembling a slaughterhouse, with blood scattered all over the walls and puddled on the floor. Local guardsmen from a neighboring town arrived and set out on what was believed to be the bear's trail, but in reality had headed another direction. It turned up on the Mayoki farm, where it killed 4 people, including a pregnant woman. Expert bear hunter Yamamoto Hikachi hesitantly made his way to Sankei-Betsu, certain that the bear was one named Kezagaki, and offered his assistance to track and kill the bear. On December 13th, the bear briefly returned to the town and snipers opened fire, though they were unable to kill it. Yamamoto set off in pursuit of Kezagaki and found him the next day, resting due to the wounds sustained the previous night. After shooting the bear in the heart and head, it finally succumbed and died. The incident is the worst bear attack in Japanese history, and memorials have been set up in and around the town to commemorate the deceased. Number 12. The Connecticut chimp attack. Probably the most terrifying incident on this list, Travis was a chimpanzee owned by Sandra Harold of New Stamford, Connecticut, having adopted the chimp in 1995. Travis had grown up among humans his entire life and was noted to have high socialization with them, knowing to obey his owner, unlock and open doors, dress himself, water plants, and feed hay to Harold's horses. However, Travis was not always kind, and two incidents occurred, once in 1995 when he allegedly bit a woman, and in 2003 when he escaped from Harold's car and held up traffic for several hours. On February 19, 2009, Travis left his house and Harold attempted to coax him back with a friend, Charla Nash. Travis spotted Nash with one of his favourite toys and it sent him into a rage. Without warning, Travis leaped on Nash and began inflicting horrific injuries to Nash's face and head. Harold desperately tried to get Travis off Nash by hitting Travis with a shovel and even stabbing him with a butcher knife, but to no avail, and seemingly infuriating Travis even more. Harold finally called 911, begging dispatchers to send help right away, shouting, "He's eating her."
What is the problem?
He's killing my friend!
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee!
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
He ripped her apart! Hurry up!
With a gun.
Hurry up, please!
There's someone on the way.
With guns, please! Shoot him!
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey's...
He ripped her face off!
He ripped her face off?
He's trying to attack me! Please!
Medical personnel and a police officer arrived, turning Travis's attention away from Nash and sending him sprinting to the police car. He tried to open the officer's driver's side door, but it was locked, so Travis calmly walked to the passenger door and opened it. Panicked, the officer opened fire, hitting Travis several times and sending him fleeing back into the house. He was found dead next to his cage a short time later. Nash suffered severe injuries, losing a hand, nose, her eyes, lips, and mid-face bone structure. 15 months following the attack, Harold suffered a fatal heart attack, which her attorney credited to the long string of losses from a daughter to a husband and finally to Travis's rampage and death. Nash received $4 million from Harold's estate after an extensive lawsuit regarding the attack. In June 2011, she underwent facial reconstructive surgery to restore her face. Number 11. Gustave. Within the depths of Lake Tanganyika and the Ruzizi River in Burundi lives the alleged most prolific serial killer on Earth, only it is not a human. Gustave is the name given to a 20-foot Nile crocodile, weighing in at over 2,000 pounds. While legend states he is over 100 years old, scientists estimate he was born around 1955. Gustave is blamed for the death of over 300 people, and witnesses claim he will grab his victims in his mouth and then drown them before tossing the body aside. People found this peculiar, that Gustave would not kill people for food, but instead in a way similar to that of human serial killers as a way of passion. Scientists say crocodiles can go for long periods without food, and Gustave can be more playful in selecting things to kill at will. Several attempts have been made to either capture or kill the beast, and he is recognizable by the 3 distinct bullet wounds from the attempts made on his life. PBS produced a mini in 2004 called Capturing the Killer Croc, which followed an expedition to capture Gustave for scientific study, though it was unsuccessful. His notoriety also inspired the 2007 film. The last known sighting of Gustave was in February 2008, and it's unknown what his current status or whereabouts are. Number 10. The Miss Teen Dog Attack. By her senior year in high school, Taylor Hubbard was known for her beauty. At age 14, she had won Teen USA and was selected as Miss Kentucky Teen in 2010, moving her on to the Miss Teen USA contest. However, on May 5, 2012, Hubbard had just left from her senior prom and was heading home to change into leisure wear when she was attacked by a 5-year-old husky a friend of hers owned. She was petting the dog when it suddenly bit her face and held on fiercely. Witnesses stated Hubbard remained relatively calm during the ordeal, which could have helped de-escalate the situation, and she was rushed to a hospital. Doctors would not let her see her face at first, but she told reporters she could feel out the bottom of my chin with my tongue. Hubbard required 200 stitches to repair her face, and many believed her pageant career would be over. Hubbard refused to accept this. While in Puerto Rico, she met a woman who was in a car accident and would be undergoing the same surgeries to repair the damaged tissues, and credits this meaning for her feeling calm about the procedures she would soon be undergoing. Hubbard had laser reconstructive surgery, and doctors were able to repair the damage, except for a few visible scars under the lip and on the left cheek. Today, Hubbard continues to work as a model and has no ill feelings towards the dog that attacked her. Number 9. George Wendt Hensley. In the American Appalachian Mountains, a movement known as snake handling was created, which involves fundamental Pentecostal Christians holding several poisonous snakes under the belief one devoid of sin would not be bitten and killed. A key figure in the movement was George West Hensley, a minister of the Church of God with Signs following who would travel to the American South to conduct sermons and partake in snake handling with other members during the 1940s and early 50s. After a series of meetings without the snakes, Hensley held a sermon in Alta, Florida on July 24, 1955, during which he produced a 5-foot-long snake, which he wrapped around his neck and carried with him as he passionately delivered the rest of his sermon. All was going well until he returned the snake to the can when it bit him on the wrist. After a few minutes, Hensley began to show visible signs of illness and pain, and his arm became discolored. He refused to seek treatment despite pleas from attendees and local sheriff deputies, claiming his pain was a result of the congregation's lack of faith, though his wife believes it was the will of God. Henley died the following morning as a result, and an investigation ruled his death a suicide. The death serves as an act of irony for a man committed to snake handling to die by his methods. Since then, snake handling has been in deep decline, and a few churches practice it today. Number 8. Alexander of Greece. A peculiar entry on this list, Alexander was a king of Greece from 1917 until his premature death in 1920, which occurred under bizarre circumstances. Alexander was a controversial monarch in Greece due to his decision to marry a woman not from royalty. At the time, the Greek royalty was of German-Danish descent, and this resulted in the exile of Alexander's parents during the First World War. The idea of marrying a common Greek meant it was possible to Hellenize the royal family, but people were split in their criticism, some believing it would divide Alexander's family into those who support and oppose the marriage. Only 3 years after his coronation and marriage, Alexander was out walking his dog when a Barbary macaque either attacked his dog or the dog attacked it. Sources vary. Alexander stepped in to separate the two, and in his attempt was bitten on the arm by a second monkey who joined in the attack. Alexander and his dog were able to get away, and he cleaned the wound and dressed it, but neglected to cauterize it since he felt it was not a serious injury. The wound became infected by that evening, and Alexander was struck with fever and septicemia, or inflammation of the wound and surrounding tissue. Over 10 days later, on October 19th, he became delirious and cried out for his mother, begging the Greek government to end her exile, though they refused. The government, however, allowed for his grandmother, Olga, to return and be by his side. Sadly, due to travel delays, Olga arrived too late, and Alexander died on October 25, 1920, 12 hours before Olga arrived. Alexander's funeral took place 4 days later, and his body is interred at the royal estate of Taito. Number 7. The Grizzly Man. The subject of the Werner Herzog documentary of the same name, Timothy Treadwell was a wildlife enthusiast who spent an extensive amount of time camping in Alaska's Katmai Wildlife Sanctuary, an area he dubbed the Grizzly Sanctuary. Treadwell would spend the early part of summer near Hallow Bay, an area he dubbed the Grizzly Sanctuary, and then moved to Kaflia Bay in the late season, which he named the Grizzly Maze due to the thick bush surrounding the campground. Due to his 13 years of experience living amongst the bears, Treadwell had developed knowledge in bear behavior, including how to hold one's ground to deter bear aggression. He also used his experiences to speak with children about bears and advocate for wildlife protection. Treadwell also filmed hundreds of hours of diary footage depicting his interaction with the animals he encountered during his expeditions. Despite his love for the animals and environmental advocacy, Treadwell clashed with the National Park Service on a number of occasions due to them not agreeing with Treadwell's actions of coming within dangerous proximity to the bears he would interact with. In October 2003, Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard were in the Grizzly Maze when bush pilot Willie Fulton arrived by seaplane to pick up the couple as scheduled, but instead discovered a bear consuming what was left of a human torso. He contacted the National Park Service and several park rangers arrived, managing to kill the bear soon after arrival. Treadwell was 46 and Huguenard was a few days shy of her 38th birthday. Their cause of death was ruled as a result of a bear attack, and the perpetrator is believed to be a bear who had awoken early from hibernation. Animals who do are said to be more aggressive than normal. Treadwell and Huguenard's final moments were captured by camera audio, but no footage exists of the attack due to the lens cap still being on. Herzog listened to the audio at the conclusion of Grizzly Man and urged the owner never to release the tape, even pleading it should be destroyed. Number 6. Taylor Mitchell. Coyotes are a species of canine inhabiting North America, resembling a wolf but smaller in size and build. While a rare occurrence, coyote packs have been known to attack humans, but rarely is it fatal. 19-year-old up-and-coming folk musician Taylor Mitchell was out for a hike in Cape Breton Highlands National Park in Nova Scotia, Canada, in order to pass time and relax before her performance later that day. A group of 4 hikers had just arrived in the car park when they heard screams coming from inside the park. They immediately set off in search of the cause and to help anyone in danger. While walking through the trail, the group began finding personal items belonging to Mitchell, including her keys, a small knife, and later a trail of blood and ripped clothing leading into the woods. The group found Mitchell in a clearing with a coyote standing over her. After charging the animal 3 times, it finally fled into the forest, and the group was able to come to Mitchell's aid. Mitchell was conscious and speaking with her rescuers as they phoned 911. All the while, the coyote stalked nearby, growling and making threatening gestures towards the group, until Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived and fired a shotgun at it, finally scaring the coyote away. Mitchell suffered bites to her entire body with serious wounds to her leg and head. She was airlifted to a nearby hospital where she was listed in critical condition. Sadly, her injuries proved too severe and she passed away just after midnight on October 28, 2009, hours after the attack occurred. Mitchell's death was the first recorded adult death caused by a coyote attack. Over the next few days, 3 coyotes were killed by wildlife wardens in the park, and all were linked to Mitchell's attack after her blood was discovered on the fur. Number 5. Tyke the elephant. Elephants have become a recognizable, possibly morbid symbol for circuses across the globe. Tyke was one such elephant performing in a circus in Honolulu, Hawaii, for nearly 2 decades under trainer Alan Campbell. On August 20, 1994, during a performance, Tyke suddenly stomped onto the stage, pushing groomer Dallas Beckwith with her trunk. Campbell stepped in an attempt to stop Tyke before anyone got seriously hurt, and the crowd watched in awe, believing it was part of the show. When Campbell stepped in, Tyke violently threw him and Beckwith to the ground, then proceeded to stomp on them for several minutes. And for their lives. Outside, publicist Steve Hirano tried to keep Tyke from escaping the parking lot, but was thrown to the ground and nearly trampled himself. But police arrived, panicked, and seeing no other options, officers opened fire, causing Tyke to flee into the streets of Honolulu. For half an hour, Tyke rampaged through downtown, knocking into cars and structures along the way. Eventually cornered, police and wildlife officials fired 86 rounds into Tyke until she finally collapsed and succumbed to her injuries. In total, 13 people were injured, and Campbell died from his injuries. The incident sparked public outcry about the treatment of animals and their use for entertainment purposes as a form of torture. Not long after, the city of Honolulu, the circus, and Tyke's owner, John Caneo Jr., was sued, and the matter was settled out of court. The incident also inspired legislation in Hawaii and California concerning the treatment of animals and the use of them in performances. Number 4. Rodney Fox. A champion spear fisherman, Rodney Fox was defending his title during a competition in December 1963. Fox had speared and collected several fish and was diving further to find more when a great white shark smelt the blood of his catch and swam towards the scent. The shark collided into Fox's side and sunk his teeth deep into his abdomen, puncturing his diaphragm and ripping open his lungs. Despite the injuries, Fox managed to fight off his attacker, surface, and wave down a rescue vessel, which took him to a hospital. Doctors found his artery was exposed, and had he been a minute later from arriving, he would have bled out. Miraculously, Fox survived the attack, and the entire side of his body, from his hand to lower abdomen, had to be stitched up with 462 stitches. The incident inspired Fox to study sharks and their behavior, hoping by doing so he will help prevent further shark attacks without resorting to killing the species. He was also the first to design the well-known observation cage researchers and thrill-seekers alike use to safely observe sharks at close proximity. Fox is still alive today and was even invited to lead an expedition on the first Shark Week specials on Discovery. Number 3. Pitbull attack caught on tape. In Los Angeles, a complaint was sent to animal control by neighbors of a woman's pit bull exhibiting aggressive behavior and the woman threatening to unleash the dog on people confronting her about it. Animal control officer Florence Crowell arrived to investigate and remove the dog from the premises. Immediately, the woman threatened Crowell, stating she would release the dog from home if Crowell didn't leave. Shortly after the woman re-entered her home, the door opened again and the pit bull ran out towards Crowell, biting down hard on the officer's hand. Crowell desperately tried to tear her hand away as the dog's owner unleashed a barrage of verbal abuse and egging the dog on. In the meantime, a camera crew filmed the incident and attempted to help, but were forced to retreat several times due to the violent nature of the dog. Thankfully, one of the neighbors ran out and struck the dog in the head with a 2x4, causing the dog to release its grip and flee back to the house. Another neighbor called 911, while the owner desperately pleaded with them not to do so, stating she did not want to be arrested. Crowell suffered a crushed hand and a punctured lung, but recovered from the attack. The dog was taken by animal control and put down, while the owner was prosecuted for instigating the attack and causing injuries to a law enforcement officer. Number 2. The Jersey Shore attacks. For 12 days in July of 1916, residents of New Jersey were terrorized by a series of shark attacks between Beach Haven and Matawan. On July 1st, 25-year-old Charles Vansant of Philadelphia was bitten during a pre-dinner swim, resulting in most of the skin and muscle being torn away from his leg. He bled to death at the hotel he was residing in. The second attack occurred on July 6 in Spring Lake. Victim Charles Bruder, 27, was swimming 120 meters offshore when he was bit by a shark in the abdominal and his legs were severed. While rescuers were able to pull him from the water, Bruder bled to death on the way back to shore. 6 days later, a third attack occurred, this time inland in Matawan Creek. Local boys were playing in the creek when 11-year-old Lester Stilwell was dragged into the water. Being an epileptic, his friends believed he suffered a seizure and ran to get help. 24-year-old local businesswoman Watson Fisher entered the creek in an attempt to save Stilwell, but was also attacked in the thigh. He was pulled from the water but died later that evening from blood loss. Stilwell's body was recovered 2 days later. 30 minutes following the Matawan Creek attacks, 14-year-old Joseph Dunn was attacked a half-mile from Wyckoff. Fortunately, Dunn was rescued by his brother and friend in a tug-of-war, eventually resulting in the shark letting go. Dunn was immediately rushed to the hospital and recovered after 2 months. The series caused panic among the vacation towns all along the East Coast. To this day, it's unknown the species of shark or whether or not it was more than one, though it's likely to have been several sharks, most likely a great white or bull shark. Bull sharks are the only shark that can live in both fresh and salt water, meaning it's likely to be the perpetrator of the last 2 attacks. In popular culture, author Peter Benchley cited the attacks as his main inspiration for his bestseller Jaws, which was later adapted into the hit film of the same name. Number 1. Steve Irwin. Undoubtedly the most well-known entry on this list, Irwin was an Australian zoologist and conservationist, known to the public as the Crocodile Hunter, a nickname he gained from his TV series of the same name. Irwin was committed to educating youth and adults alike about nature and the wildlife that inhabits it. Mostly, fans were drawn to Irwin's seemingly eccentric and hyperactive persona. Aside from television, Irwin was the operator of the Australia Zoo in Biawar, Queensland, a position he inherited from his parents. He would frequently appear at the attraction to host wildlife shows in front of live audiences, where he would interact with a variety of animals, most notably crocodiles. In 2006, Irwin teamed up with conservationist Philip Cousteau Jr., the grandson of oceanologist Jacques Cousteau, to film a documentary called Ocean's Deadliest. During a sequence on September 4th, Irwin was snorkeling in the Bat Reef off Port Douglas, Queensland, and was filming some shallow water shots for his daughter's children's program, Bindi the Jungle Girl, after bad weather prohibited him and the crew from venturing further out. While filming, Irwin swam towards a stingray from behind. Startled, the stingray plunged its tail into Irwin's chest as a defensive tactic and swam away. Irwin was taken from the water and he initially believed the stinger had pierced his lung and spine, but had actually punctured his heart, and the injury proved fatal. The entire incident was captured on film, and all the footage was handed over to Queensland State Police as evidence. After Irwin's death was ruled accidental, and the Irwin family had all footage of his death destroyed.
Got an idea for a top 15 list? Submit it at top15s.net/submit. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.